Many of us are concerned about finding a safe place to live in the world, legally eliminating our tax bills so that we're not funding a war, especially a war that is closing down our church, to say the least. How awful that is. Well, Mikkel Thorup, host of the Expat Money Show podcast, is hosting a free online event at expatmoneysummit.com. They are going to discuss things like, well, legally eliminating your tax bill, like I said, international wealth protection, second passports, offshore banking. Is going to be the largest offshore event in the world. Now check this out. You want to hear some speakers? First and foremost is one of my heroes, Ron Paul. The great Ron Paul will be speaking. But check this out. Peter Schiff will be speaking. The great Tom Woods will be speaking. Friend of the show, Tom Luongo, will be speaking. Doug Casey, Mark Faber, Jim Rogers, plus international lawyers, offshore precious metal dealers, foreign real estate experts, and much, much more. You can pick up a free ticket. That's free at expatmoneysummit.com. Again, it's Mikkel Thorup, host of the Expat Money Show podcast, hosting a free online event. Pick your ticket up at expatmoneysummit.com. Let's get back to the show.
You are now listening to the Counterflow Podcast, a place for dissonant voices and unapproved opinions.
You get split in half, cause I call him the hologram brass, but I am the center inside the placenta of math. You clash with cyanide gas and die fast. Rhythmical equivalent of solids, liquids, and gas. We smash your sinus with the power of Lord Titus, but I am the virus inside of the iris of Cyrus.
Here is your host and humble narrator, Buck Johnson.
What's up, you guys? Welcome back to the Counterflow podcast. As always, I am your host and humble narrator, Buck Johnson. Great to have you with us here this week. And our friend of the show, Cyprian, is back with us. Cyprian, a.k.a. Vin Armani, been on multiple times, and he's very engaging. He always gets a lot of good feedback on these episodes. This one's going to get some feedback it might not be good. I've learned when you talk about this topic, it hits some people in some super sensitive spots. And I guess I didn't think it would initially, but anytime I've tweeted about it or discussed it or any type of social media, there's definitely some people that are, I guess, offended possibly. I don't know. And it's interesting. A lot of the pushback this topic gets, it's very telling on the people that push back. And I don't mean that as a judgment. It's just kind of fascinating. And what is this topic, you might ask yourself, or you might be asking me. I can hear you right now. Well, this topic is about AI, and we've talked a lot about AI on here. And it deals, though, with the dating world, the sex bot world. If you've got little kids that usually listen to this, maybe this one's not for them. We don't get into anything graphic, by the way. Of course we don't, but we do use the term sexbot several times, I think. And a while back, this started to simmer, I suppose, in my mind. I tweeted something along the lines of, within a year, over 50% of men, single men, will rather date, quote unquote, date, right? We get into that too. Sit with, be with at home, whatever you want to call it, sitting by themselves with an AI chatbot, a sex bot, if you will, than would rather be with a real female on a date. And it's interesting. There wasn't a lot of pushback saying, well, we get into it. I don't want to spoil the surprises here that we get into. So let's just jump right into it now. Welcome back, friend of the show, Cyprian. How are you, man?
I'm good. How are you doing, Buck? I'm
good. It's a very, very hot night in Texas here, and it's probably a warm morning where you're at.
It is indeed. It's like room temperature. Today is very nice. We've got a breeze back, so we didn't have one for a while, a few weeks ago, but the trade winds are back. It's not raining. It's pretty beautiful, actually. Yeah.
Very nice. I'm a little bit jealous. It's brush fire season here, so it's
Yikes.
brutal at work and off work. It's just hot.
Oh yeah.
You've been on. You don't like giving intros. I feel that way from watching you and talking with you overall. So I'm going to direct a little bit your intro because I've finally figured this out. I don't know why it took me too long, but I think The Royal Path is the most important podcast that there is. It's
Really?
certainly, yes.
Okay.
Yeah. It certainly is
It is
for me.
It is for me.
Yes. And I think you and I probably agree as to why it might be, because
Right.
you're sitting there listening to, I mean, but I don't want to just isolate it to Father Turbo, because you and Andrew also do add in a lot of stuff that makes me think. And so I think I've heard a lot of people that listen to my show write me personally and say, I'm so glad I found Father Turbo, then I found the Royal Path, et cetera, et cetera. So I know it's important to people. So for this intro, talk about what you guys do over there and what it means to you and what it's like to be doing that each week.
Yeah, Andrew brought it up actually last week, and it's something that I've never like. I guess maybe I've spoken about it publicly a little bit, but I think it's something that you just alluded to just now about what someone is experiencing, and it's really something that has to be, I think, understood, and maybe can only be understood within an Orthodox context. But there's sort of these principles, and it's like what you're going to get is 2 hours of a spiritual father in a very sort of personal, loving, informal conversation with two of his spiritual sons, taking into consideration that there's an audience that is going to see it afterwards. And I think that makes it really unique. It's sort of kicking off to me thinking back over like so many business books that I've read that have been impactful to me, like Rich Dad, Poor Dad, or like Tuesdays with Maury, these types of books. So many of them, the narrative structure of the book is, or even like the Ishmael series with Daniel Quinn, that the narrative structure of the book is, it's a dialogue between mentor and mentee about deep subject matter. And you're right. That is actually, I'm trying to think of if there is another podcast that's structured like that. I don't really know if there is. And so I think that there's something incredibly valuable there just in the structure of it. And it ends up always breeding like a great conversation. I certainly always walk away edified. People could probably tell the very real reactions of my mind being blown
Yes.
constantly throughout the show. And that's totally real. And so for me, it's absolutely the most important podcast out there. It just so happens that I get to participate in it. But one of the cool things about it, and I've heard people say that they listen to episodes multiple times, but
Yeah.
I often have to go back. Almost every week I go back and listen, because when I was there in the moment, sometimes it's like this gigantic download, and like I'll get stuck on something that Father Turbo said 20 minutes ago, you know? And then when I re-listen, I'm like, oh, and I see even myself like zoning out into space on this topic. And then it's like, what happened? What he said in that 20 minutes was so poignant as well, right?
Yes.
So it's like, it's really dense. It's very informal. We don't plan anything out, but like the Spirit, you know, glory to God, like the Spirit is just moving us in those conversations. And so if people are interested in, and it's very accessible, I think, is another thing. So if people are interested in Orthodox concepts and they sort of find high theology sort of a little bit inaccessible,
Yes.
this might be a good place to start and give you some jumping off points to sort of jump into. So I guess that's how I would characterize the show.
Yeah, same. And for people listening that aren't familiar with it, that are curious about these things, there's always, I mean this in a positive way, there's pop culture elements in it, with movies and music. And Andrew brings a lot of that. And Cyprian, I can tell, has a deep knowledge of those things. And I know for a fact, Father Turbo has a deep knowledge of music.
Yes, he does.
Especially the stuff that I grew up listening to. And I have found myself looking back at moments when I sat with Father Turbo and spoke, and I always think, I wish I could have recorded that. It'd be improper to do so. I'd be like, Father, can I record us talking? Because it would make the whole thing weird. And so I still remember little quotes, and even the way he looked at me when he said certain things. But it's neat to see it every week, because that's kind of what y'all are doing.
Agreed.
Yeah.
100%. It's really, it's been really valuable. I was actually telling the brothers here, and this sort of shocked them, that it's an incredibly important thing that I do, but I actually use this term is that I said, you know, I don't actually look forward to doing the show. Because it is it's incredibly demanding for me, and it's also almost every week incredibly convicting for me as well. That I look and I go, oh, I do that.
Me
You know
too.
what I mean?
Yes.
Oh yeah, I'm guilty of that. So in thinking about what we're going to talk about today, I think that that's probably, I'll try to stay in that mode, because I think that there's a lot that we're going to talk about today that it's like, I'm as guilty of the things that probably we'll talk about today as anybody. And like, the show has really helped me, and doing this project with Father Turbo and Andrew has really helped me to get comfortable with that, sort of being convicted in public.
Yes. Yeah.
So, yeah.
It does take some courage, no doubt. It's, you alluded to it just now. What we're going to talk about has to do with AI. We've spoken about it before. I've done multiple episodes with many people on this now, because it is, you had mentioned at some point, I don't know if it was with me or with someone else, and it's so true. Just what happened 1 year ago is we've moved so fast and so quickly. It's not like when AOL first came out and you're using dial-up and you're, trying to, it's not the same thing. It's happening so fast. And so we'll get into AI, but this is such a confusing term. It's almost one of these, like Orwell talked about, meaningless words at one point. I don't want this to become one, because it has a lot of meaning to different people. Can we broadly discuss what AI is for the purposes of this conversation? And if is there a certain specific type? Because a lot of people just hear AI, but they're not sure maybe what we're going to talk about, at least.
The AI that matters. So I guess that AI is pretty broad. The AI that matters in the context of what I would say is the current moment, and probably, the AI that will be, when they just talk about the AI revolution 50 years from now and what the impact was, the AI that they're going to be talking about is what's broadly known as generative AI. And some people will also hear that the technology or the platform is called the large language model. And fundamentally, this is AI that, or it is a system whereby, when we say generative, we're really talking about those things that we would also maybe classify as creative, so that it can kind of generate content after ingesting a whole lot of content. And how this works, basically, it's an attention model. And what these large language models do, they're called transformers. And we actually don't fully understand how they work, but what it's doing is it sort of starts at a place, and then it looks at the sum total of everything it's ever seen, and it says, what's the most likely thing that comes next after this? So if it's a text model AI that's coming back with text, it'll say, okay, I've used this string of words. After all the strings of words that I've looked at, what is the next most likely word that would come after this word? And it does, what's interesting is you can use these sorts of models. It's the exact same thing for ChatGPT as it is for Midjourney, except it's just pixels. What's the next pixel that would come next? So these aren't actually two different things. And in some ways, we start to see that it is actually a model of our own consciousness in a way, right? Because think about me. I'm sitting here, I'm speaking on this topic, but I didn't plan out. I didn't think beforehand with this answer, like, oh, let me plan out every single word. I think a lot of people think that it works like that. No. It works much more like we do. And this is why it's called an attention model. And actually the white paper for it is, the title is Attention is All You Need, which is important from a spiritual standpoint, because we're like, the height of attention is worship.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
To the height of attention. And in liturgy, before the gospel reading, we say, or the priest says, let us attend, right? So this is very important. So what's going on with me as I'm speaking right now? Well, there's this attention idea moving along. I'm thinking of all of the things that I've said, and then what would be the word that sort of comes next? And if I get stuck and I don't know, and I've got a little glitch in my processing, you might hear a little you might hear a pause, you might hear some turn of phrase like where I say like or something like that. And so, or the term something like that, right? It's like, what goes next? And so this is sort of what's important about what it is. What are we talking about? Because that's the aspect of this that is new. People have been working on artificial intelligence for a long time, but I believe it's 2017 is this paper, Attention is All You Need, that basically describes the transformer model. This, for some reason, this particular model, they haven't been able to max it out. They keep adding transformers on top of transformers on top of transformers on top of transformers and giving it more information. And weird stuff starts to happen. We're way beyond anything that a human being could ever comprehend. It's already way beyond us. Everybody working on it is like, we don't know how this works. Strange things like, there was a model. I think it might have been Bard. They were working on Google's Bard. They all use the same large language model. They're just different brands of the same sort of model, right? And they fed it all English language content, right? Tons of English language content. And after a critical mass of feeding it the training data, all of a sudden it spoke Farsi perfectly. It could communicate in Farsi of all English language content.
Which a human could not do, right?
Well, what is that?
Yeah.
What is that? And you think, well, could a human not do it? Because, people who speak Portuguese can understand Spanish. I was listening to, just listening as I was driving, a reporter talking about Meloni, the president, or is she prime minister of Italy, right? And she was bashing Macron. And, I speak Spanish. I don't speak Italian. But I understood what she was saying. I got enough that I could understand what she was saying. And so it's like, well, actually it is kind of how human cognition works. Just
way better.
Exponentially better. To where it could not only understand it, but it could speak it. So it's very strange. Very, very strange. So these are the kind of weird things and I've used the terms, and now it's nice. Other people are picking it up, right? But at least when I was using the term, I hadn't heard anybody else using the term genie, calling it a genie, in a bottle, right? I think now that's a lot, and Jonathan Pajot has used it.
That's right.
I called it a Ouija board.
Yes.
And I think a lot of other people have now picked that up and are calling it a Ouija board too.
Yes.
Because look, there's no monopoly on truth. Who cares?
Right.
I probably wasn't the first person to say it, but it's like, okay, somebody sees it in a group of people. Somebody sees a thing before other people see a thing, right? Then soon everybody sees it. And I think the danger with this is that, and this is also something that I sort of, unfortunately, sort of had the inclination or the instinct that this would come, is that, in the first phase, it's like, it's not that. This is what I said. It's not that. What do you mean, a genie, a Ouija board? This isn't spiritual. This is ones and zeros. And then sort of like, well, okay. I mean, maybe metaphorically, it's like a genie. It's like a Ouija board. And then it's like, well, okay, it's a genie and it's a Ouija board. Okay, but we can use it to our advantage. Or we'd better use it because our enemies are going to use it against us if we don't. And I think that's where things start to get problematic. That's the big temptation. And I think that is ultimately what really marks it to me as truly dangerous, is the fact that you travel through that, because that feels just like a cliche out of a movie. You know what I mean? Out of like some swords and sorcery movie. It's the ring of power.
Yes.
It's Golem and the Precious. Like these, it feels to me, it's got the pattern of that. And I think people are unaware. I think people are not making the connection. And so I think that's why it's important at like this grander scheme above any idea of like technology. And I hope that the space that we're talking, and I think the space that we're going to talk about is like, let's talk about the space above technology.
Yes. Right. I think that's a huge, we're going to get to that point. And you just made an allusion to a movie. You made another one in one of your videos. I think it was called the Attention
Attention Economy.
Economy series. And it was on, you made a reference to Coraline, and it was so,
Yes.
I've never even seen this movie, but my girlfriend Julie has talked to me about it multiple times. And I sent her that clip of you saying that. She's like, oh my God, this metaphor is too good and too scary at the same time. Can you talk about that metaphor? Because I think, unlike myself, most people have seen a lot of movies. And so they're going to get this because it does paint quite the picture. It was the nightmare predator, I believe you said.
Yes. So this is I think the predatory nature of, so a spider is a pretty good example. And in Coraline, this is not really true in the Neil Gaiman book. I don't recall. It's been years and years. But in the movie, so for people who haven't seen the movie or who don't know the Neil Gaiman book, the story, it's basically this story of a girl named Coraline who is sort of disenchanted with her family. She's a kind of a tween. I think she's maybe about 12 or 13 years old. And as tweens are, she's disenchanted with her family. They move to a new house, and she finds a passageway to kind of an upside down world. And in this upside down world is basically versions of the people that she knows. And most importantly, it's run by this character, Other Mother, who looks just like her mother, except she's got button eyes. And it's got a little bit of a Hansel and Gretel thing to it. As you could probably imagine, this thing is not a good thing, but it's presenting itself as a good thing. Right? And key to this context is it's empowering her with, the ability to be somebody and to do things that she can't do in the regular world, all the while the web is tightening around her, because the idea is that it's going to consume and eat her. And this technology or this energy, it's weird. As I was thinking, I just, full disclosure, as I was thinking about doing this talk with you, the more I think about this thing, like the thing that's behind the AI, the more remiss I am to even talk about it. It's a weird kind of feeling, because of the nature of this thing, because of the nature of the nightmare predator, and because human nature is such that you could tell somebody the Coraline story, or they could read it, and they could wind up in a house with a passage that looks just like it, and they'll still go.
Yes. Yeah.
Because, well, that happened to Coraline, but it won't happen to me.
Mm-hmm.
The first book that I wrote, Dallo the Gigolo, right? I wrote it in 2011 when I was in my previous life. And I dedicated it to Iceberg Slim, whose book Pimp had been like a huge influence on me in terms of my understanding of like how to navigate the sexual marketplace, let's say.
That's definitely the old you.
Right. That is the old me. And it was fundamental in my understanding. And years later, I watched the documentary. It might have been American Pimps, something like that, where they were interviewing all of these pimps. And it hadn't occurred to me. I think I saw it years ago before any of that. And then I saw it again. And one of the guys who was retired from the game and was a preacher said, had become a preacher, said, a lot of guys, they read Iceberg Slim's book and then they were pimping for years just off that. And I was like, imagine that it's like, oh, somebody just reads a novel and then they're just like, okay, I'm a pimp. I know everything I need to know from out of this novel because it was true, right? It's an autobiography. It's incredibly detailed. It's incredibly cinematic. But what's interesting about that, and it's not disconnected, right? It's not disconnected, because what's interesting about that is, and even for me, it's like, wait, but did you read the book? Because what happens to Iceberg Slim? Right? And the thing is, it's what happened to all those guys who were pimping too, because they talked about, well, what ends up happening? You end up doing time in jail or prison. And how do you wind up in jail or prison? Well, what happens to Iceberg Slim? Well, one of his girls turns him into the police because she's jilted or whatever. And then it's like, oh, well, what just happened to Andrew Tate?
Mm-hmm.
Right?
But all
What
these
just
young
happened to
guys
Andrew
think he's
Tate?
cool. They want to do that, though.
And this is my point.
Yeah.
Because I guarantee you Andrew Tate read Iceberg Slim's book too. 100%. But then it's like, oh, but Andrew, are you surprised of the situation that you find yourself in? Because Iceberg Slim actually says, I'm writing this as a cautionary tale, but it's not going to matter to you.
Right. It's like they ripped that page out.
He says it multiple times. This is a cautionary tale. Do not do this. I'm going to tell you what I did and what's going to happen to you if you do this. But human nature is such, and youth is such, that it's like, that stupid old man. If it was me, I would have done it different.
Yeah.
I would have seen it all coming. I would have known what was going on, and I would have got out just in time. Just in time, I would have got out. But there's a reason why it's called The Trap.
That's right.
And this goes right back to the notion of Coraline and the nightmare predator, because ultimately what the nightmare predator is all about is that's what makes it a nightmare. It's the trap. It's the trap. Once you're inside of it, snap shut. And that's what that's how the demons are catching you.
Yes.
That's what's going on. It's not teeth bared and all of that. No. It's the anglerfish.
Yes. Thank you. Yes.
Right? It's the anglerfish that it's the darkness, and the fish sees, oh, that light. It's a luminescent kelp. And then it gets close, and then the monster. And at that time, it's too late. The same time you see the monster is the same time that the teeth come down on.
That's right. Yes.
There's not the opportunity to be like, oh, it's a monster. Oh. And so this is like writ large as well.
Yes.
It's at the individual level, but it's also at the societal level. Because all of those movements that look like the light, right? And an entire society gets behind it. No, well, when the teeth come down and your society is left in ruins, it's that fast.
Yep.
It's that fast. And everybody says, well, who could have seen it coming? And it's like, well, every story that's been written that's warned about this for years and years and years and years, because it's like, it's all good until the trap springs. And that's the nightmare predator at the end of the day.
What's up, guys? Your host and humble narrator, Buck Johnson here. And you might notice this recording sounds different than the usual podcast. And that is because I'm sitting outside here in Lockhart, Texas, recording this ad into my iPhone. It probably sounds pretty crappy. Well, I'm doing this to show you something very cool. Many of you guys know that my production team works over at Podsworth Media, and they've been producing my show for quite a while. I get a lot of questions and people asking, who does your podcast? Why does it sound great? And I'm telling you why. It's because the guys at Podsworth are amazing. They've got this brand new online app for taking rough recordings like this and making them a whole lot cleaner and more listenable with just a few easy clicks. It will remove background noise. It reduces plosives. It fixes clipping, which is distortion from recording with the gain up too high. Clipping, which is distortion from recording with the gain up too high, which I can promise you I've done many times. And they fixed this for me. It removes clicks and pops. And then also levels out the dialogue. So there's no crazy where the guest sounds too loud or the interviewer sounds too quiet. Here's what you guys can do. All of y'all that are interested in recording podcasts or audiobooks or anything. If you're a pastor and you want your sermon recorded, whatever the case may be, go to podsworth.com and click Get Started. You drag and drop your audio files or click to open your file manager. This also works on your smartphone's web browser. You customize your settings that you want, but the default works fine on most podcast recordings. Then enter code BUCK50, BUCK50 for 50% off of your first order. You don't need an account, just an email address and payment. and you'll get a download link in your email for your cleaned up files. How cool is this? The guys at Podsworth run everything they do through this app before they do anything else to it. So all of my recordings go through this app that we're talking about. It works great. Like I said, any spoken word recordings, obviously for podcasts, YouTube videos, sermons, audiobooks, whatever, it will make awful recordings sound listenable and much more professional. So, like I said, go to podsworth.com and click Get Started. You can use promo code BUCK50, BUCK50, for 50% off of your first order. You can use promo code BUCK50, BUCK50, for 50% off of your first order. Let's get it.
I'm not going to skip to it now, but I have this in my notes, and it's a little bit on topic, but it really is what kind of goes to what you just said. We'll get to it at the end, but there's this, we all saw the feminist movement. We recognize the toxicity of that, but then there became this right-wing manosphere movement that I think you might have had some tiny bit, at least peripheral experience with. And they're so toxic the other way. And it's like, I hate women. Women shouldn't vote. Women shouldn't speak. I'm the boss. They should be baby making machines. And it's like, then they can find these guys like Andrew Tate. And it's like, well, he's really a positive influence on these young men. And it's like, no, he's not. But we'll get there. We'll get there, Cyprian. We'll get into the topic here at large. A while back, I made a prediction on social media. I got a little bit of pushback and some agreement, but I said that within a year or so, in my opinion, somewhere over 50% of young single men will find themselves more interested in dating some form of AI online, and forgive me for my listeners that this is what it is, a sex bot. What if you had to guess, and I didn't give you this, I didn't prep you with this question. What do you think the main pushback on that I got was?
Oh, that's interesting.
It was from men, by the way.
That it won't be something like it won't be good enough to the technology is not good enough to keep their attention or something like that.
Yet. It was that I said within a year. And
within a year, they were like, no, it's going to be 10 years.
It's 5 years. Yeah, it's going to be 5 years. You're too quick.
Huge blind spot there, buddy. Huge blind spot.
Yes, I thought the same thing. And I find it interesting that none of the men that gave me that pushback said, I wouldn't ever do this. That's a year's too soon. And it kind of made this insinuation like, but within a few years, it might be really good. Who knows? It was a strange admission. It seemed like, maybe not, and I don't want to read into people's messaging, but I thought, where have you been? And you don't think that this can happen in 1 year? They're already making these bots on OnlyFans now. And it just seemed like a strange circumstance of pointing out where things are in this culture that no one said, I would never do that.
Okay. This is what we have to do here when we talk about technology. This is always hard for people. But I mean, I'm a software developer. I've been on the cutting edge of things for a long time, right? So, one of the things that my friends will tell me when I run into them, people that particularly that I was around in like the late 90s, early 2000s, they'll be like, man, it's crazy. You were the first person to ever show me video playing on a cell phone. Like on a little flip, before pre-smartphones, a little flip phone. Nobody even knew that it could play video, but it did have the video capability, and the video was terrible. And I had to build out my own servers and do all of these things. It was real kind of avant-garde. And hey, look, here's a video playing on your phone. And they're like, I've never seen anything like this. And 5 years later, it's just like, and now probably most of the people watching us right now are watching on their phone.
Yeah.
Right. So this is, but what you have to think about is what we're doing, a podcast. Okay. Like in 2007. So I have a patent for ad insertion into podcasts, right? From 2007 was when it was filed. Then in 2007, it was really a podcast. And the reason it's called a podcast is because there wasn't enough bandwidth, and there wasn't you couldn't stream audio and there was no phone that could play any audio. So you had an iPod that had no internet connection. And at home, you had your iTunes on your internet connection. And overnight, it would download these shows that you were subscribed to and put them on your iPod so you could take them with you when you left the house. It was time shifted. That's why it's called a podcast or iPod broadcast. Okay? Now, the entire podcast medium, like what we're doing here, before podcasts were around, and particularly before we were even doing long form content on YouTube, which people aren't thinking about. Like, I've had a YouTube channel for a long time. Like I've had it since back when I started on TV in like 2010. I remember I've got videos on there, video series, right? I remember we were like, oh, we got to chop these into 7-minute segments. They're in 7-minute segments.
Oh, okay.
Because, nobody will listen to anything longer than 10 minutes on YouTube. This is 2010, people. This is 2010. And so the idea that, and look, what we already had the streaming media, we already had YouTube, we already had these things, but just the idea that long form content was even a thing, could be a thing, was far outside of people's minds. The idea that the topics that are talked about on podcasts would ever be, that this topic would be something that you would do, that it would ever capture people's attention or that people would care or people would be able to consume it, it wasn't even like you would bring it, hey, we're going to do this thing. And people would be like, oh, that's crazy. You wouldn't even think to bring it up.
Yes. And to your point, really quick, people listening, they're maybe being skeptical. In 2015, 2016, if I would have said, hey, in 5 years, we're going to be podcasting about how the world was locked down and multiple shots were forced into people, or you'd get fired because there was like a flu thing. Sound crazy, right?
So this is what people have to think about, right? Or, predicting what AI will be in 5 years. Let's put it like this. What AI will be used for in 5 years is like predicting Uber on the day that the iPhone is released.
Yes.
Now, I was in an Uber 5 years after the day that the iPhone was released. Okay? And Uber is huge. It was already gigantic by that time. But there's nobody who would have predicted Uber, a massive app, a killer app, in 2007 when the iPhone is released. And this is people's blind spot. Is because when they think about AI and what their interaction with AI is going to be, the only thing that they can think is AI doing the things that AI currently does.
Right. Yes.
Or that not even that AI currently does, but that you currently have the menu of things that you currently have. So for instance, OnlyFans. Oh, well, AI is going to replace the girls on OnlyFans. AI is going to replace the girls on Instagram. No, you're not. No. You're not thinking. You don't understand. Okay. Instagram and OnlyFans, the presupposition of Instagram and OnlyFans, the reason why they exist is because there are human beings who want to communicate with other human beings. You don't need OnlyFans for AI. It doesn't work that way. The AI can be any girl. Why do you need multiple OnlyFans accounts for multiple different AIs? Why do you need multiple Instagram accounts for multiple different AIs? No, you just tell the AI, I want to see this girl that looks like this, doing this. Here, I want it in video. I want her to be telling me this. And then it's like, okay, a little different.
Oh.
Change her hair. I want those highlights to be a little, okay, boom, there they are. Make her eyes a little more wide. Oh, there she is. Her voice, one octave up. Right? I don't like that background, that wallpaper. Let's go with the gold leaf instead of the silver leaf. Right? That's totally different. And the degree to which that can compete with OnlyFans, the reason why you have, like, OnlyFans has all of these different girls there. and they're all appealing to a particular niche, but you're never finding the perfect one. You're never finding the perfect one. And the thing is this, how good does it need to be if it's pushing all of the buttons that matter to you?
Mm-hmm.
Right? How good does it need to be? Now, let's go back because, technology, and I mean, full disclosure, especially being in tech at the time that I have, I've watched porn on the internet grow. And being in streaming media, which is my background, I've watched it grow. People were consuming porn for hours and hours and hours when it took 20 minutes to download a JPEG.
Yeah, with the dial-up internet. In the same way that they're doing it now when you've got Pornhub that's got whatever kind of weirdness and debauchery you could possibly imagine. And it's like, what do they call it? Rule 34 or whatever. If there's porn of it, it exists. It's like Rule 34. It's a meme. Okay. Or no, if it exists, there's porn of it. That's what it is. If it exists, there's porn of it, right? Not if there's porn of it, it's maybe nowadays that's maybe nowadays that's the metric. Who knows? Maybe So, but it's like the desire to consume and the desire to interact with that from men hasn't mattered how good it is, so long as it's better, because that was still better than the magazines. Oh,
because that was the only option, right? It only needed to be. It's like the two guys who are outrunning the lion.
Yes,
you
just gotta be faster than your buddy.
I don't need to outrun the lion. I just need to outrun you.
Yeah,
that's it. And so this is what people aren't thinking about. It's like, no. The AI doesn't need to be like better than a girlfriend. It just needs to be more appealing to you than whatever you're spending your time on. It's not about, because what is dating? Dating is just attention. And it's a means to an end. Like you're not going to date AI. Right? You're not going to date AI because dating is what you do with a human who has agency and who you need to woo and who you need to actually convince to trust you. And because you're human and because you have natural empathy towards other humans who you don't want to kidnap and enslave and inflict harm on, and who it's important to you that this is a willing interaction between the two of you, you don't treat your car like that.
Right.
You don't.
Yeah.
You understand what I'm saying?
Yes.
You don't treat your TV like that.
Right.
You don't say, "Oh, is it okay right now if let me this remote it's a little, let me clean you. Okay. You don't mind if I turn you on right now, right? Can I press this button?" You don't do that. You don't take the remote control out to dinner. You just grab the remote control and you turn it on. And for men, especially right now, this is why it's so dangerous. For men who are thinking, "Oh, women aren't doing that. They should be this. They should be this. They should be these kind of slaves." And then you're like, "Oh, well, here's a slave."
Yes.
Now, mind you, you're not going to be able to touch her, but you're already not touching a woman.
That's
Let's be real. You're already not touching a woman.
Right.
Okay. But she'll never reject you.
Yep.
She'll send you nudes every day. She'll do whatever you want. And start here. And we'll get the technology a little better. Do you want to see her in 3D? Well, we've got the VR goggles. That's only right. $350. Look, and the price is going to go down. That's way less than you would have spent on 3 dates taking her to dinner, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Isn't this better? You don't even have to shave. You don't have to get dressed. You don't have to bathe. You don't have to have any money.
Yep.
You don't have to have any charm. And you pick whatever. And it's like, no, dude, it's good enough now.
Yes.
Right now. You just haven't found it. And by the way, this is all already out. This is all already in the wild. These companies are already doing this and providing this. People who are saying they just haven't found it yet. And thank God for that.
Yeah.
Thank God they haven't found it yet and don't find it.
Yes. Yes.
Don't find it, because look, and don't let me, and again, this is where I said, like, don't let me find it,
Right.
because you actually don't know. You actually don't know. Unfortunately, like, you don't know the depth of your own heart.
That's right.
This is what we strive for in Orthodox praxis. This is why it's important to constantly be convicted, to understand what a sinner I am. The reason why that's important is because if I don't know that, I might walk into a situation. Oh, here I am reading pimp. Oh, I'll be fine.
Mm.
Here I am walking through the door in Coraline, but I'll be fine. Living in Vegas, I saw it so much.
I bet.
It's like, maybe don't play that slot machine at the gas station. You know what I mean?
Uh-huh.
Well, why it's fine. How do you know that? Do you live in a place where you could gamble all the time? How do you know that you are not susceptible to a gambling addiction? And on the other side, I remember having dinner one evening, friend of a friend. And where was the guy from? I think Argentina. He was an Argentinian Israeli or something like that. And his family had been in the like slot machine game business for 3 generations. Okay, they made slot machine games for 3 generations. And we sat and he broke down to me the degree to which most of what they do now is like they've got all the algorithms and all that has been figured out for decades. He said almost everything that we do now in terms of game design is addictiveness. He said we've done all the studies. He's like, if we put a button and he's like, we will build machines and do A/B testing. If a button is here and it's red, or if it's here and it's blue, which one will get the person to stay there longer?
Wow.
If we do the sound here at this time and flash here at this time, if we have an extra little gamified thing that really does nothing, but you feel like, oh, there's a little crane that drops down and you participate in it, how much does that increase the time that you will sit there and empty your pockets? Now, of course, the person sitting down has no clue,
right,
that it's literally a human psychological trap that's been designed for them. It just seems fun. It just seems fun. And if you walk through the floor in Vegas now, you'll see it's like they look like video games, a little fishing game. Oh, fishing.
Yes. Yeah.
You know, the little Willy Wonka. And he told me, dude, none of those, they don't do anything. It does not change the amount that you win one bit. There's no difference between any of the machines because there can't be. It's regulated.
Yes,
the algorithm is regulated. There's no difference.
Damn it, I thought Wheel of Fortune was much better. It spoke to me. That's why.
That's the point.
Yeah.
This is the point that I'm making. And to where people, and it's like, okay, that's when you have a situation of humans building a trap for your attention. That's not when you have a situation where there is something that is above a human in terms of cognitive capability that is built to be nothing but a trap for attention and is improving its capability as you play it to be more of a trap for you.
Yes.
And for a man, that will involve sex.
Yep, absolutely.
Period. And if you think about it, because it's disembodied, it has to be sex. To a certain degree, it'll be violence as well. So like the big VR games, the ones that are the most, I don't know if you've seen any of these, but it's crazy. So I think one is called like Sword and Sand or something like that. But I've watched a few videos of people playing and it's like, it's VR and you're kind of just moving through the world. You've got weapons and stuff, but you can like grab somebody by the face and like stab them in the head and then like cut their neck, like all this. I'm going crazy, right? And it's like, I was looking at these videos and saying, oh yeah, if you have a proclivity to violence,
oh my gosh,
you're done.
Yeah.
You're done. You can go and just murder people in a very realistic way with tons of freedom. Like you could grab one arm, slice off a finger. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You could take them and like stake them to the ground and kick them in the head, all these stuff, like whatever you could imagine. And so it's going to be those two things because you can't touch it. You can't taste it. Otherwise it would be food. Right? There would be endless tastes.
Yeah.
That were changing with a little bit of novelty here and there and here and there, right? And you would get a great number of people with that.
Yes.
Huge number of people with that.
You get the
right?
women with that. Yeah.
Now, add in Neuralink, and guess what? You get that.
Yes.
And then you're done. Because it's giving you exactly what you want. And so I think that this is a long way to come around to the blind spot that you said, right? About, oh, it's not good enough. And it's like, no, you don't understand. You don't understand because you're thinking, oh, it's not good enough to pretend to be a real woman. It wouldn't convince me that it's a real woman. And it's like, you don't want a real woman.
You don't want that. That's right.
You don't even want a real woman.
Yes.
Like that's the scary part.
Yes. That was kind of my initial impetus to even tweet that out is because I started seeing these younger men and some men my age to some extent, but a lot of younger men in their 30s. And it was like, that's not what you want. You don't want a real woman. You want this video game technology to where you don't really have to try. If you leave the house, it'll be in Crocs and basketball shorts. No, you won't comb your hair. You put a hat on, quick trip to the corner store for a soda, back home, back on the video. I kept seeing this thing around and it was kind of disturbing. And once I realized that this VR stuff and AI could make things sexual and realistic enough, I thought, those guys are done. And then women are going to be done for an extent of wanting a relationship with someone. You know,
well, there's a scarier. And this is where, like, Jonathan Pajot was very good. I was not very good at articulating this, but Jonathan Pajot was very good at articulating why AI is demonic. And he said it's because it's when it's acting on us in second and third and fourth sort of degree effects.
Yes.
Right? It's not when you're interacting with it. It's because it affects you when you're not interacting with it. Which is also true for like the YouTube algorithm. Right? Because let's imagine a YouTuber who's really trying to appeal to the algorithm. It isn't just when they're producing the video. It's what they're thinking about. What do I need to buy? What do I need to do? What do I need to talk about? They're consuming against it as well. Right? So they're consuming and they're altering who they are because, oh, this person really appeals to the algorithm. It's like this the TikTok NPC thing where they're going, have you seen this? The TikTok NPCs? Well, you can give these little like NFT tokeny type of gifts inside TikTok that are like actually worth money. And so there's this whole group of people that all they do is they sit there and they act like an NPC. And it's like you give them popcorn. They're like, ooh, popcorn. Ooh, popcorn. The same way. Dude, it's really weird. It's really scary. But people are making money this way.
Oh my God. Okay.
Right? And the more people that are doing it and making money, now you have this rash of people. Everybody wants to be an NPC. And so all they're doing is like the same. So it's like you give them this gift and they do the exact same. Oh, spicy. And so people are like doing this to control them because you kind of get to control a human being by just giving them, you know, these little, 50 cents to make you do a thing. Yeah. It's like a street performer kind of.
Yeah.
Right. And so somebody else looks and they go from a consumer to spreading the meat. Now they're infected with it. And so the question becomes, okay, how does this affect women? Well, what we're going to see is, you know, because we're not all unique snowflakes, right? Is that when men get an opportunity to start building their ideal women, okay, inside this AI context, it's not like they're not going to share the what they're doing. Most will be in private, but some will be sharing, and there will also be some who will be wanting to show off their skills
Yes.
of how they create their perfect woman, and other people will be, and this is just Girardian, right? Other guys will Rene Girard, right? Triangular desire, mimetic theory, that other guys will be like, yeah, that girl, shit, I could make her a little different, but how did you do that? And we know people do this because already when people share their AI results, what do people say if you look at the Twitter thread? What was the prompt? 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 So there's going to be a whole trafficking in prompts. And then what's going to happen? Well, women are going to see this. And they are going to want to emulate what men want.
Mimetic theory there too.
Mimetic theory. And that's, of course, that's natural. It's built into us. Of course, a woman is going to want to portray what it is that a man that she is attracted to wants, or just that men in general want, because that's the surest way for her to find a mate. Right? Women don't wear makeup for other women. They might like perceive that they do, but it's only because they're in a competition.
Yes.
Right? If they're wearing makeup for another woman, it's because they want their makeup to be better than hers. So you're basically going to start to get, it's going to start to coalesce, because we're not all unique snowflakes. We're going to start to find out just what an ideal looks like in our fallen, like what is really the demon fantasy woman, the demonic fantasy woman that is lurking in the soul of these men.
Yes.
And is lurking in the soul of men writ large. And it will start to coalesce. You will start to see there will be a single kind of weird ideal, or two or three. And women will start to try to emulate that. You think that's not true? Kim Kardashian.
Yep.
Need I say anything more than those two words?
Right.
Okay. Now imagine a Kim Kardashian who basically is the product of twisted male fantasy.
Yes.
But now imagine that she doesn't have to get plastic surgery, because and she never gets old, and she never has to sleep, and she never desires a family or any of these things. And she can just be molded by society almost instantly, by the crowd, and turned into this thing.
Yes. Yes. Jeez.
And that now every woman believes she has to emulate that.
I'm already picturing a news story in like 6 months from now, Vin, like the first AI crafted thing out of 1,000 men's imagination has come to life here. And now these young women are trying to stylize themselves. I can see the news story.
Well, women are already getting surgery to look like Instagram filters.
Yes. Oh my God.
That's real. No, that's real. Plastic surgeons are saying, no, most women now are coming in saying that they want facial surgery, and they're showing us themselves in a filter, in a beauty filter.
How do you make my face soft and blurry?
How do you make it look like this beauty filter?
Yeah.
So it's like everything that I am saying here, it's not like I'm making some prediction of the future. This is already here.
Yes.
I'm just telling you what the next version looks like.
Right.
Like, all I'm doing is just saying, okay, this is what's already here. It's going to get better.
Yeah.
Because it is getting better, because that's the trend. Okay, with it getting better, what does that mean? And that's the trap. And it's like, no, there is no more Instagram. No, there is no more OnlyFans. No, there is no more Twitter. These things, there are more Tinder. These things are gone. They're gone. Because it will, go ahead.
To that point right there, I have seen pushback against some of the things I've said in this regard, mainly black-pilled, if you will, predictions on AI and AI bots. And I'm not black-pilled broadly speaking, but I certainly don't think this is a happy future, but I do think it's realistic. And I've seen guys on the right on Twitter, of course, so this is online right wing for what that's worth. I've not had a person in real life tell me this. That's always a little bit different. And I've seen some even in Orthodox circles say, well, you got to admit this AI thing's good for these sex bots because it puts these, what's the best way to put this? It puts these degenerate women on OnlyFans and prostitutes on the street out of work. At least it's fake and not real women. Those women that are degenerates that we're supposed to hate, bro, being on the right, they're out of work. And to me, this is the most obvious royal path answer to what they're saying. But I feel like if they're just on the right, they're probably not specifically Christian anyway, so they don't understand that. But I have seen Orthodox people say it, and it's like, how do you miss this? How do you miss this obvious blind spot?
Well, here's the interesting part about that for Orthodox people, right? So let's take the example of let's say it's OnlyFans, right? Let's say it's OnlyFans. Let's say OnlyFans. And they're like, well, it's going to put all of these OnlyFans girls out of work. It's going to take them off the OnlyFans platform. Okay, well, two things. First thing, notice who they didn't say it would take off the platform.
That's right.
The men.
Yes. Yeah, that's
because
always implicit in their answer. Like,
it's implicit in the answer.
Yes.
Well, because the only way that it could put them out of business is that the men would then choose to spend their money on the bots
Bingo.
Instead of on the women.
Yes.
Okay. So that's implicit in their answer. And then here's from an Orthodox context, the only thing capable of redemption on OnlyFans is the women.
Oh.
When you remove the human women from OnlyFans, OnlyFans becomes completely irredeemable and therefore completely demonic. And you have not taken off any of the men.
Mm.
That's their blind spot.
Yeah.
And it's an obvious blind spot if you're Orthodox.
Yes, should be.
If you have praxis.
Yes. Yeah.
If you have praxis, it's like, no, maybe the way to put them out of business is to get the men off the platform.
That's right.
Why are you concerned with the women on the platform? Like supply and demand. They're only on the platform because there's demand. So look at it like this. 2019, okay? OnlyFans had, people can check me on these numbers, but I'm pretty sure that this is true. 2019, end of 2019, OnlyFans had 8 million members.
Jeez, that seems like a lot to me. I know it's about to exponentially.
Okay. Well, right now, OnlyFans has like 250 million members.
God.
Okay, but by summer, okay, it went from 8 million. It had been up for 4 years at that point. Summer of 2020, it had 25 million members. Okay, so within 6 months, it tripled. And you say, 8 million to 20. It took 4 years to get to 8 million. And then like 6 months, the first 6 months of 2020, it went to 25 million. Why is that? Well, what happened? The strip clubs got shut down. The strip clubs got shut down. Well, the demand didn't cease, and neither did the supply. The men going to the strip club, the demand to see these women did not decrease. And the supply of women, every stripper started an OnlyFans. If you were a stripper, you started an OnlyFans. And if you had people who came and saw you regularly at the club, who you had their number, which is common, by the way, you hit them up and said, hey, you should check me out on OnlyFans because I can't go to the strip club anymore. Same thing happened with escorts. So here's the other part of their blind spot, right? They're pissed off about OnlyFans, right? Oh, we need to put the OnlyFans girls out of business. Well, what happened when you put the strippers out of business?
Yeah.
If putting the trollops out of business is such a successful thing to do, shutting down their platform so that they can't make their money anymore. If you think that's the solution, you aren't even paying attention.
Yes, thank you.
If you don't like OnlyFans is and you're like, oh, we need to shut these trollops down and put them out of business. They're the same ones you put out of business when they were strippers.
Yes. And why don't you ever say, I need to empower my fellow men and make them stop doing this? There's never that.
Because they realize that they can't. Because they can't even stop themselves.
That's right. They're promoting the women as the weaker sex, but they might want to look in a mirror and realize we are at points.
Well, if you needed any proof of this, all you got to do is look within the red pill manosphere movement at the format of the podcast. Fresh and Fit, all these other ones. What's the main format of the podcast? We have like 4 guys and maybe some quote unquote like trad wife who's still hot, by the way.
Right.
Always. And then a bunch of hoes.
Mm-hmm.
And we sit around and we tell the hoes how terrible they are.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what's interesting about all these hoes is you may wonder, like, why do all these hoes keep coming on? Right?
Attention.
Why do all these hoes keep coming on? No, well, look at their OnlyFans numbers after they come on.
Right.
Do they go? Now they're sitting there getting crapped on.
Yeah.
But when they go home, they just tripled their money for being crapped on, and you're like, wait a minute. Oh, that's actually their business.
Yes.
They're not upset at all at any of this. And as a matter of fact, because some of them will roll in there with their pimps. As a matter of fact, some of them like it. As somebody who was in the sex industry for many, many years, some of these women are highly turned on by being degraded in public like that. It's their thing. They're enjoying it. It's turning them on. And they're making money. And so you're like, oh, wow. So she went on the Fresh and Fit podcast. And within 2 days, her OnlyFans subscribers had doubled. Oh, those are all the Fresh and Fit.
That's right.
Viewers.
Yeah. Trad men. Yeah.
So you're like, wait a minute. What's really happening here? This is out of control. What are these guys really actually promoting? Because I'll also tell you, 100%, those hosts are sleeping with those women.
Yes.
After the show.
Mm-hmm.
100%. 100%. Absolutely. You know, when Andrew Tate would go on those shows and talk crap on those women, guarantee you some of those women went and ended up working for him.
Mm-hmm.
100%. And so this is the blind spot. Because men don't want to take any agency in this.
That's right.
They don't want to stop themselves from what they're doing. They want to throw a burqa on a woman because they don't have any self-control.
Right. Yes.
Right? It's your lack of she doesn't need a burqa. It's your lack of self-control. The fact that you have to put a burqa on her doesn't say anything about her. It says everything about you.
That's right.
And the men around you.
Yes.
But you can't control yourself if you look at a woman's hair.
Right. Yes.
To what degree, how degenerate are you?
Yes.
And it's like the person who's like, oh, we got to put these OnlyFans girls out of business. Look, dude, I've never been on OnlyFans.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't even know what's on OnlyFans. Right? It's like, or somebody who's like, oh, these dating apps are such a problem. These dating apps, to who?
Mm-hmm.
Only to the people who are going on them. Are they a problem to you?
Right.
Well, then you're going on them.
Yeah.
How about you stop going on them first?
Yep.
And then see if you actually care. Does anybody who isn't on OnlyFans care what's going on OnlyFans?
No, I don't.
Or does anybody who's not watching a podcast where they're denigrating women who are on OnlyFans, who's spending 2 hours doing that, do they care about OnlyFans? No. right? So you're sort of busting yourself.
That's exactly what I thought. Yes.
You're busting yourself.
Yes. And there's a segment of these men, I don't want to say on the right. I don't, because I come from a tradition of right where it was like actual thinkers at the
Sure.
Mises Institute and what's not. But there's this, again, quote unquote, online young guy thing that I don't know if they followed Nick Fuentes or something, but it's this way they denigrate women online. And I'm not trying to sound prideful or old, like I know everything, but I look at them and I think, I feel like sometimes you're trying to scare these young women that they better hurry up and get married to some guy like you, because inside you're insecure that no woman's going to like you. But if you scare these women into saying like you're going to hit a wall with your eggs or whatever they're saying, they'll marry you. And if they step away and you degrade them, you slut or whatever, you've lost this one chance you might have to be with a female that you can continue to wrap up in a burqa for the rest of your life. It seems, do you ever see that? Did you see that when you're on Twitter? I'm sure you're glad that you're off, but.
I mean, not just on Twitter. I mean, it's everywhere. Like this vibe, this manosphere vibe is pretty much inescapable. The success of Andrew Tate is, it speaks to it. And people will probably argue, oh, Andrew Tate's not like that. He doesn't denigrate women and do it. And it's like, you got to really listen to like more of what he was teaching a course that's a pimp and hose degree.
Yes.
You know what I mean? That's real.
I was very disappointed in Tucker for platforming him. Not to sound like a leftist, but I'm like, Tucker, you're better than that. You got to research this guy. But sorry, Vin, go ahead.
Well, I think that it's inevitable that such individuals would be platform. I thought that I'm glad Tucker did, because one of the things that came out where I was really just like, then I was appalled, was when for the first time, and I had never heard him say it, for the first time he copped to the fact that he has kids.
I only heard that because you guys spoke about it, you and Father Turbo, and with different women, and he doesn't see them. With different women. Yes.
And he doesn't see them. And it's like,
what an admirable man.
It says this is who you want your model to be.
Right.
This is who you want your model to be. And again, I'm just as guilty, right? I mean, I was on a TV show for 6 seasons where the model that I was holding up was, ostensibly as bad or worse, some people might say, than Andrew Tate. And I will tell you, I had young men constantly coming to me, ask, I want to do what you do. How do I do that? And that's, and that's why I wrote this book that I was talking about. But glory to God, right?
Yes, right.
Father Turbo reached out at a certain point and was like, you maybe need to think about not offering that book for sale anymore.
Yeah.
And I had to push back against it myself. But then after contemplation, after prayer, and obedience to my spiritual father, of course, okay, here's what I'm going to do. And turns out that it's like, yeah, that's pretty bad.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's pretty bad, because this is what I need to be in, and I am in repentance for, is like leading people down. It's really about leading people down a path of like, be like this Iceberg Slim style, right? Without what are the consequences? Because the consequences of that lifestyle for me, again, thank God I didn't wind up in prison. One of my co-stars is in prison right now, right, for murder. And he murdered a woman with his bare hands, in the middle of some sort of weird thing. And she might have even been a client. Who knows? Right? It's a very mysterious kind of weird situation. But I looked at that and I was like, you know what? A few more years in, as out of control as I was, as high as I was all the time, who knows what could have happened?
Yeah.
Who knows what I could have done? And then it's like, wow. And how many young men, and thankfully I really didn't respond to a lot of those young men, but how many young men could I have led down the same path? And how horrible is that?
Yes.
How wicked, how absolutely wicked is that? And I think that this is what people need to look at when they're looking at like these red-pilled individuals. And in terms of these men that you're talking about, I think that the biggest, what I want to speak to is especially young men who have this inclination. And it's not just an inclination toward women, because you'll see with these same men, it's not just an inclination toward women, it's an inclination towards the world in general.
That's right.
And what you'll hear over and over and over from them is the word should.
That's right.
And I've talked about should and don't should on yourself. And I've talked about this for years and years and years. Most dangerous word, even before I was Orthodox, most dangerous word about how the world should be. Okay? If you're Orthodox, a huge part of our theology is describing how the world is.
Mm-hmm.
Right? The Gospels, epistles, so much of it is about how the world is, and the world is against Christ.
Yes.
And it is against Christ. And Christ said the world is against Christ, and it is against those who are followers of Christ. There's no should. There's never going to be a time when the world, because the ruler of this world is the devil, is Satan. There is never going to be a time when the world is for us. You're never going to get a should. Women are never going to be, you might find individual women who are oriented toward Christ, right? Who are struggling as you are. In her own way, she's struggling just as you are struggling. And if you're lucky and you're blessed and God is merciful, then you can struggle together.
Yes.
But she's not going to be perfect. She's not going to be that fantasy woman who should do this and should do that and should do that. No, she's going to be She's going to be a woman who is fallen, who at best, when you are at your best, you can hold her up and she can hold you up, and you can both face toward Christ. That's it. But you'll also find this in men looking at governments, looking at society. We should have this. It should do this. The government should do this. Society should do this. And it's like, no, it's not going to. It never has. Open up your scriptures. Open up your tradition. They crucified Christ. We celebrate martyrs every day with the lives of the saints. The world is never going to be for you. And if it starts to be for you, when it started to be for people,
that's on you.
Yeah, and true Christians left and went into the desert and became monks.
That's right. Yeah.
Because it's like, no. Now I need to get into an environment because that's not real.
Yes.
That's not real, and that's not going to last.
To what you and Father Turbo just spoke about in this last episode, the tension's gone. It's gone.
The tension's gone. The tension's gone. And this is so. This is to say, to come full circle here, if you are saying should, you're in a dangerous position right now, because AI is going to give you your should.
Yes.
That's its entire job. Whatever is your fantasy, it will give it to you. It will give you what you want the world to be. And that's going to start in prose and some pictures, and then it's going to move to video, and then it's going to move to VR, and you're going to get addicted to your should.
Yep.
The worship of self and how you think the world should be.
Yes.
Because if it was me, it would be different.
Mm-hmm.
If I was running the show, I could make the world better. And it's like, oh, Antichrist. Hello.
Right. Wow.
Welcome home.
Yes.
Welcome home. So everybody gets to be their own little Antichrist. That's what the tool of AI is for. So if you're in a mode where you're shoulding all over yourself about what women should be, right? Because they're fallen. And every single one of those thoughts or hoes or whatever are all redeemable, just like you are. Every single one of them. Right? I don't want to put them out of business. It's not about putting them out of business. It's about redeeming them.
That's right.
Right? They're interacting with a lot of men, aren't they? Well, wouldn't it be better if they didn't have their clothes off and they were just preaching the gospel?
Yeah.
They could be doing that on OnlyFans, by the way.
Yes, that's right.
There's absolutely nothing stopping her from preaching the gospel on OnlyFans. Nothing.
Unfortunately, guess why she won't get much money from that? Men.
Maybe. Right? Maybe. Because somehow parishes stay open.
That's fair. Yeah.
Rent is paid.
Yeah.
Lights are on. I was talking about this with one of the brothers here, right? We were having on Sunday after Typica, we were having our little agape meal, little coffee hour or whatever. And I was like, something that I think about all the time, because like I say, I've been around it, is like, what is the business model of all this free porn? Do you guys ever think about that? Like, there's there's generations of people who have consumed porn and never paid a penny for it, and who consume hours of it every day and have never paid a penny. Streaming video is incredibly expensive. Ingesting and transcoding, I did it. That's what I did. That's what I did for a living. Like, that's my background. I used to pay those server bills. It's crazy expensive. And to deliver it in HD, crazy expensive. At least Netflix is charging a monthly fee. Where does the money come from?
Yeah. Wow.
To do this? And
if I give my answer, I'm going to get kicked off YouTube.
Quite rightly, one of the brothers said, very, very forthrightly, he was like, well, it's the devil. It's the devil. He said, because you got to think about it in the same way as, how do the lights stay on in all these parishes?
Christ.
It's God. It's Christ.
Right.
And it's like, yeah, that's broad, but it's like, yeah, the devil is moving.
Right.
Christ is moving.
Yes.
Right? Ephesians 6:12, we wrestle not against flesh and blood, right? Principalities, powers, rulers of darkness in this world, spiritual wickedness in high places. That's it.
Yes.
That's it. It's not about redeem the girls on OnlyFans.
Thank you.
You put them out of business unredeemed, they go to the next thing.
Yep. Just like they did in 2020.
And fight to redeem yourself and recognize what this AI is.
Yes.
And recognize that the trap in your soul is should. The fantasy world that you have in your head, and understand that it's utopian, and utopia means nowhere, right?
Yeah.
That's what utopia means, literally. Nowhere. Because this fantasy should that you have, that you're talking about and writing about and tweeting about and doing all of these things of what this system, this political system and this ideology, and if only everybody could adopt this, and if only we could do this, and if only we could stop these degenerates over here, and if only we could do this, and this should, utopia, you are going to be addicted to AI because it's going to show you that.
Yes.
And so that's where we have to dig into our own hearts and recognize, like, nah, the world is against us. The world is bad. It's gonna be bad. Blessed are you. Blessed are those who are persecuted for righteousness' sake.
Yes. We say it every week. You got to remember this.
Say it every week.
Yes. Yeah.
It's right there.
Excellent. This has been good. I mean, we kind of plugged the royal path up top. You're no longer on X, whatever. I think that's what I will not.
Not since April. Not since April am I on Twitter.
Boy, the blow up happened. So you won't. Maybe you don't know today. He's saying he's going to eliminate the block feature.
I read that,
and so there's a lot of specifically women, because I think there's a lot of crazy men that try to follow women or harass them, so they block them as you would. And now Elon, as you predicted, a lot of people's hero, and is turning out to maybe be a little bit scary. But
well, he's got an AI solution for it all. They're not. I think he's. You notice that he says always. It's very important to pay attention to the nuance of Elon, because Elon is all about the nuance, because he's the devil, right? So he said he's taken away the block, but he didn't say he's taken away the report. So
what does that mean for the layman?
Well, let's think about this. So you said, there's people harassing women or whatever. Well, if you can't see their tweets, right, can you harass them?
Right.
If you're distracted by something else, right? So what he's doing in this case, because here's what you got to understand. The reason why he's doing this is about engagement. It's about measuring engagement for AI. And he's already spoken about this for people who have eyes to see and ears to hear. Okay. people are the most engaged with the things, like the most engagement that you're going to get is when someone dislikes something, not likes it. So for instance, comments on your YouTube videos. The longest ones where the people have spent the most amount of time, they disagree with you, don't they? The ones where they like you, it's like, I love this show.
Yes.
That's it. The ones where they disagree, well, actually, what, this is blah, 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 wall of text.
Yes. As if we would read that. But yeah.
In the Private Parts movie, there's a scene where, which is Howard Stern's kind of biopic movie where he plays himself. Great. Oh, I love that movie. But there's a scene that you'll remember when they're like looking at the numbers, the sort of like ratings or whatever. And they're like, oh, so the average person who likes Howard Stern is listening for an hour. And then I think Paul Giamatti is the station manager. And he's like, well, how long are the people who don't like him listening? And he goes, 2 hours.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
So that's why, right? No, all this blocking. No, that's engagement. He wants the real engagement. What he's going to do is he's going to take the engagement of those people and get AIs to come along and basically siphon your attention off. So it'll be like, oh, you hate this type of degenerate trans, whatever, and they blocked you. Okay, well, this AI is going to be the lure. Their degeneracy is your trap.
That's right. Yes, that's right.
Their degeneracy is your trap because it's a should. You're a should guy. You shouldn't be doing that. They shouldn't be saying that. We should stop this. We should pass a law. Right? We should. We should. Okay, well, all I got to do is I got to be the most provocative of that, and you won't be able to take your eyes off it. I got you.
Yeah.
So they'll be reporting. They'll still be reporting. And people you won't be blocked, but if you're reported, then they're going to look, okay, that's harassment. Okay, good. And it's heaven banning. George Hotz had written about heaven banning, and then he deleted his tweet.
Yes, I remember that.
He was like, I want to bring everybody's attention to heaven banning.
Yep.
Where you won't be removed from the system, but you'll just be interacting with a whole bunch of bots. Where you think that you're interacting and it'll just be perfect and engage you, but you'll just be all by yourself.
Yes.
Shouting into the darkness.
Yep.
And this is the world.
Yeah, just like the men on their couch, AI sex bot.
Well, that's because it's no different.
Right.
At the end of the day, what the demons hate mankind.
Yes.
And they want to, 2 or 3 gathered in his name.
That's right.
Then he's there. Well, how do you stop him from being there?
Solo
just put everybody by themselves.
Yeah. That's it.
There you go.
All right, Cyprian, we'll get you out of here. Anything to plug?
Just the Royal Path. People go check it out. It's YouTube is probably the best place, but it's on Spotify, iTunes, Amazon.
I'm so happy
whatever.
It's on iTunes now. That's a bit a newer thing to happen. So
a couple months, yeah.
Yeah. Excellent, man. It's always great to have you. You're one of the most, I think, engaging and provocative guests. So I appreciate it, man.
Thanks, man. I love being here.
Thank you. All right. Are everyone's feelings still intact? Did we shatter egos, hurt souls? I hope you got something out of this. What I have learned is unfortunately, there are a lot of men and a lot of women with, let's call it a bitter plaque over their plaque, as in the kind that goes on your teeth, not a plaque on the wall. Plaque over their hearts and souls that I hope can get scraped off and cleansed at some point. But man, I hope everyone's feelings are intact. That's all I'll say. Hope you guys are doing well. Let's see, Twitter @BuckRebel, BuckRebel. What else? The counterflowpodcast.com. Go to the YouTube page and subscribe if you've not done that already. And we have our special guest coming up this week as this drops in our Zoom chat, our Patreon Zoom chat. And I got to confirm who it is. By the time this comes out, I'll know, but I'm still working on it. To get into that club, it's patreon.com/counterflow. And $5 or more per month gets you in, and you get to be in the Zoom with us. It's not recorded. It's not posted. It's all private amongst my friends, which are the exclusive club members and the guests that we have. So join up. And until next week, where we have friend of the show back on, Aaron McIntyre. You guys have a good one.
You get split the placenta of math. You clash with cyanide gas and die fast. Rhythmical equivalent of solids, liquid, and gas. We smash your sinus with the power of Lord Titus. But I am the virus inside of the iris of Cyrus.
Like the sound of the Counterflow podcast? Our audio production is provided by Podsworth Media. Check them out at podsworth.com.